nature of goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of humankind. We beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and good those whose interests you have committed to our charge. All which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. I don't normally allow that. That must be your last time to cross the floor when the house is in session. afternoon, honorable senators and ministers. Honorable Minister of Finance, the Senate convenes at 20 hours. No, I'm talking to the Minister of Finance.
If that is the time to speak at that, it should be postponed.
Honorable Minister, it's only good manners, at least to let me know.
Thank
Order, I have received the Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025 and the Appropriation 2026 Bill HB 13 of 2025 from the National Assembly. What day for second reading, Honorable Minister?
And now, Mr. President, thank you.
Accordingly, second reading of the Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025 and the Appropriation 2026 Bill HB 13 of 2025 will be orders of the day number 1 and 2, respectively, for today, with the rest of the orders being renumbered accordingly. Are there any notices of motion? Any notices of motion? Minister?
thank you, Mr. President. I rise to give notice that whereas Section 327, subsection 2A of the Constitution of Zimbabwe provides that any treaty, convention, or agreement acceded to, concluded, or executed by or under the authority of the President with one or more foreign states or governments or international organizations shall be subject to approval by Parliament. Whereas the Republic of Zimbabwe signed the convention establishing the International Organization for Mediation on 30 May 2025 in Hong Kong, Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. Whereas the convention will advance and promote the use of mediation and a useful complement to existing international dispute settlement mechanisms. And whereas the Republic of Zimbabwe is desirous of ratifying the convention, now therefore in terms of Section 327, subsection 2A of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, this House resolves that the aforesaid convention be and is hereby approved for ratification. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, while I'm abstaining, I rise that whereas Section 327, subsection 2A of the Constitution of Zimbabwe provides that any convention, treaty, or agreement acceded to, concluded, or executed by or under the authority of the President with one or more foreign states or governments or international organizations shall be subject to approval by Parliament. Whereas His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe signed the SADC protocol on the interstate transfer of sentenced prisoners on the 18th of August 2019 at Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Whereas the protocol facilitates it's the transfer of sentenced offenders from the territory of one state party to the territory of another state party in order to serve the remainder of their sentences in the territory of that other state party. And whereas the Republic of Zimbabwe is desirous of ratifying the protocol, and whereas Article 20 of the protocol provides that the protocol shall be ratified by a member state in accordance with their respective constitutional procedures. Now, therefore, in terms of Section 327, subsection 2A of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, this House resolves that the aforesaid President said,
Honorable Minister, can you allow us to check? There is your address who came and actually gave not
thank you. My staff would say it was not done.
no, it was done. We have them on the paper.
Presidency, apologies, my
I
staff.
think they were new.
Yeah, they are there. They are there. Sorry, I withdraw. Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. President.
All right. As you were, honorable members, the notices have been withdrawn. Any further notices of motions? If there are no further notices, I would like to remind honorable members to put your gadgets on silent, or better still, to switch them off, so that they do not disturb the business of the House. The clerk will read the first order of the day. Honorable Minister.
Mr. President, let me begin by expressing my gratitude to honorable senators and their respective committees for the support conveyed during the 2026 National Budget Formulation stage, which demonstrates our collective commitment to building this nation together. Honorable senators are aware that on the 27th of November 2025, I presented the 2026 National Budget to Parliament under the theme Enhancing Drivers of Economic Growth and Transformation towards Vision 2030. Mr. President, as highlighted in the budget presentation on the 27th of November 2025, the 2026 National Budget seeks to balance between expanding on the gains of NDS 1 while safeguarding fiscal sustainability, underscoring government's commitment to promoting durable and enduring macroeconomic stability, characterized by low and stable ZIG or domestic inflation. Mr. President, the 2026 national budget is anchored on the 10 national priorities of the National Development Strategy 2, NDS 2, as follows. These are some of the pillars, but all of them: macroeconomic stability and financial sector deepening. That's number one. Two, inclusive economic growth and structural transformation. Three, infrastructure development and housing. Four, agriculture, food security, climate and environment. Five, science, technology, digitization, innovation, and human capital development. Six, job creation, youth entrepreneurship and development, creative industry and culture. Seven, social development, gender and social protection. Eight, regional development and inclusivity through devolution and decentralization. Nine, image building, international relations and trade. And 10, good governance, institution building, peace and security. Some of the key highlights from the presentation I made include the following. The global and regional economic development, which are not as favorable. The state of international commodity prices was also discussed. And then the performance of the domestic economy in terms of prospects in 2026, with real GDP growth projected at 5% growth in terms of GDP growth, but with some upside potential And finally, in 2026, the ZIG annual inflation rate is projected to decline to single-digit levels by end of the first quarter, right into the second quarter of 2026. The 2026 national budget highlights overall global expenditure amounting to 290 billion ZiG, which is equivalent to 9.5 billion US dollars, or 17% of GDP. This is against a revenue target amounting to 288 billion ZiG, or 9.4 billion US dollars, or in percentage terms, 16.9% of GDP. However, the budget operational framework, as per my presentation to Parliament on the 27th of November 2025, is working on a total revenue target of 275.7 billion ZiG, or 9 billion US dollars, or 16.2% of GDP. And this will be revised in the second half of the year once revenues have stabilized. Total expenditure will be contained within an envelope of 281.8 billion, or 9.2 billion US dollars, or 16.6% of GDP, giving a rise to a budget deficit of 0.4% of GDP. Mr. President, during the budget presentation, I submitted some revenue and expenditure proposals as well for the 2026 national budget. With your indulgence, the President, in keeping the established practice and I invite honorable senators to make their comments, input, and suggestions to these proposals that I made on the 27th of November 2025. I thank you.
Minister, you should then say, I move for the second
reading. Mr. President, I move that the bill now be read the second time. I thank you.
The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion that the Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025 be now read a second time. Is there any debate? Is there any debate? Are you standing up? No, I'm calling for the debate. Do you now want to debate?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have followed the presentation of the debate with interest, and we believe there has been a robust debate. And some of the things that we have picked up is obviously that there is an aspiration to perfect as much as possible the systems for raising funds. We understand that our economy is informal to a large extent. We have a lot of informal businesses that have developed and been rolled out over the years. And I think that the Minister of Finance is trying to wrestle how to collect taxes effectively in an informal setup, and how to encourage those in the informal sector to begin to contribute to the revenue collection of the country. Mr. President, in so doing, however, we note that there are quite a number of innovations, particularly as relates to presumptive taxes, which have been made. But the worry that one has at the back of their mind is that In terms of our education system, or maybe let me put it this way, the reason why our education system was as it was in the pre-independence era, particularly for the majority of the population, it was geared in order to educate workers, to educate labor, people who are going to be employed, people who are going to be service providers. So it was a colonial model. And from that early age, there was no financial education in it. So a person went from grade 1 all the way up to whatever standard they would go to. They would not receive education in basic accounting. They would not receive education in how to run their finances. We've gone through many years where our economy was formal and working was easy. And there has been no education in entrepreneurship and how to run businesses. You would even find it in many people who are in positions that they do suffer this deficiency when it comes to a lot of these things. And when I go through the Act, particularly the very technical provisions on something tax and payment of rentals, the designation of proprietors of properties as proprietors who are liable to accommodate people, and the number of firms that have been completed, and I'm speaking in general, make it very, very difficult for people who have no accompanying period or method of educating them to actually comply. You would find that there is quite a number of people who will be non-compliant simply because they are stamped by the sheer number of forms that they have to fill, by the sheer detail that they need to know in order to complete this thing. And we would urge the minister to find a way to accompany this proposal with some form of workshop in order for those who would like to understand their business better to approach a particular department within the ministry to be assisted to be compliant. So as I went through this act, this is what I found. I found a lot of those kind of things. And some of them we can deal with them. The other outcry relates to the increase, the marginal increase. They may seem marginal when you look at them to issues, things like VAT, even the inter-IMT tax. The minister should consider that a lot of the people to be impacted by these increases are going to be the poorest of the poor as they go about their transactions. And I wonder whether there is adequate justification for these increases, particularly in VAT and the IMT, and whether there has been an impact study of the extent to which the poor people in the country are going to be affected, the majority of the people. And in the final analysis, when you consider just the shape of the budget, it seems to be that it is a budget that is going to affect the poor more heavily than the big corporates and the people who make the real money, who should bear a higher burden of the tax. I'm sure these are some issues which have been raised in the lower house. We have the privilege of dealing with issues which have been streamlined, but these are some of the issues that I would like to highlight quickly as the minister presents this finance bill to us in the form that it is today. There are a few cleaning up issues in the text, which I'm sure will be dealt with thoroughly in committee, but particularly I was worried about when it comes to taxation, self-assessment clause, which requires that people who man or run passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles should be subject to self-assessment. People beyond a certain threshold. There's some cleaning up in terms of the definition of what a commercial vehicle is or what a goods vehicle is. There are a few issues like that which we look forward to ironing out when we get to those clauses. There are a few typographical issues that we have seen. Otherwise, in a nutshell, we submit that the bill is in order, although we'd like the minister to consider, particularly in my proposal, that in one way or the other, we include a department or a desk in your ministry that is there to assist people to step forward, to be assisted, understand to what extent a user-friendly one, which then doesn't punish people for stepping forward, to ask to be assisted. I so submit.
Thank you, Senator Pulu. Is there any further debate? Honorable Zindi.
Thank you.
Order. Honorable Zindi. Mackenzie NCUBE. Any other? Which one? Yes, that will be in that order. Honorable Zindi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My concern is on the issue to do with the VAT that is being proposed to 15.5. Particularly when I'm looking at the majority of our people, that they are living below poverty datum line. This will have a ripple effect in terms of increase in all services. And then my worry is looking at the poverty that is reflective of our society. How then are our people going to be able to survive? And it points also to the issue of, smuggling. We are seeing a lot of smuggling. And how then is the minister intending to put measures to stop smuggling, because smuggling is being necessitated by the difficulties our people are facing, and hence we cannot control smuggling. So that's my main concern, Mr. President, because this is going to affect everybody. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zindi. I recognize Honorable Mackenzie NCUBE.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I've got one or two areas of concern, but I must commend the Minister for crafting a bill which in the main sustains fiscal discipline and macroeconomic stability. But one area of concern is on revenues, particularly the reduction of the MTT tax from 2% to 1.5, which was very clean tax, easy to collect on a daily basis. And then why not reduce it by a small percentage? And trying to recover that on VAT, increasing VAT from 15% to 15.5%, I think that's the same 0.5%. That's the way I read it. That you took one from here, but it becomes very difficult to recover. And in the end, when you have got, even though your budget deficit is small, around 3.2 billion or thereabout, but over time you may find that widens. So there's a need to look at that, because if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't have reduced the IMTT tax. But you are much wiser anyway. So if we can have some clarity on that one. And then the other one, which actually concerns me more, is the royalty, particularly on gold, 10%. Already, I think somebody has already mentioned it. When that actually encourage leakages, I'm not sure how effective that one is going to be, because right now we are grappling with the black market, particularly on gold. So, some clarity on that one also, Minister. Those are the main 2 points I had, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Ngwe. I recognize the Honorable Senator Mlotshwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the recognition. And I thank you, the for bringing this bill into Senate, which most of the time, Mr. President, it just feels like we just have to quickly do it as senators with no real effect or change on it. But we do hope that the minister will consider what we're presenting to him and just here and there, because being in the Senate doesn't mean it takes away our legislative role as members of Parliament as well. Mr. President, allow me to not merely debate figures on paper, but to speak for the lived reality of Zimbabweans. The mothers in the queue at clinics, the tenants fearing rent hikes, the informal traders dodging roadblocks, the young people priced out of hope, and the elderly whose pension no longer buys dignity. The 2026 budget, as presented by the Minister of Finance, speaks eloquently of growth, stability, and reform. But, Mr. President, beneath the polished language lies a painful truth. This budget balances the books by leaning heavily on the poor, while leaving those in economic power room to negotiate, minimize, and escape. This is not accidental, Mr. President. It is political and an economic choice. Mr. President, the most telling feature of this budget is the decision to increase VAT from 15% to 15.5% effective January 2026. I know some of the members have mentioned this, and I think everyone is standing on their toes with worry about this particular change in the budget. VAT, Mr. President, is not abstract. VAT lives in our kitchens. VAT lives in the commuter omnibus. VAT lives in grocery lines and informal stores. VAT is paid when a mother buys cooking oil. VAT is paid when we are going to buy exercise books for our children in January. VAT is paid when a worker tops up airtime to look for work. Calling VAT broad-based does not make it fair. Calling it efficient does not make it just. When Treasury raises VAT, it's not broadening base, it's shrinking plates, reducing meals, and forcing families to choose between transport and food. And we must be honest with ourselves, Mr. President. The poor cannot optimize taxes. They cannot shift profits. They cannot offshore income. They cannot hide behind accounting structures. Their income is naked before the tax system, and VAT tax first every time. Mr. President, the budget also introduces a digital servicing with a holding tax, presented as a modern response to the digital economy. But, Mr. President, let us ask who actually pays. Not multinational platforms, not global tech giants. The cost is passed down to students accessing online learning, small businesses advertising online, content creators, cross-border traders, ordinary citizens buying data. Once again, the same people carry the burden. Zimbabwe does not have a tax shortage, Mr. President. Zimbabwe has a tax justice problem. Mr. President, honorable members, our people are not angry because they hate paying tax. They are angry because they see the unfairness. They see companies extracting minerals, earning foreign currency, charging monopoly prices, while communities around mines still lack clinics, clean water, decent roads, and maternity services. Mr. President, this house, your house, has debated around mines and mining communities in this house. This year, it was one of the most relevant motions that we had, including the motion on culture, the motion on mines. And every time the Minister of Mines and Mineral Development comes here, there is the same ongoing question: when do we really benefit from the minerals that we have underground? Mr. President, I think the minister should really look into this. Mr. President, Zimbabwe bleeds revenue through transfer pricing, profit shifting, aggressive tax planning, opaque incentives, selective enforcement. Instead of confronting this head-on, the budget chooses the path of the less resistant, taxing consumption and survival. Easy to collect does not mean fair, Mr. President. Convenient does not mean just. Mr. President, let me be very clear on ZIMRA, the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. I have brought 2 points of national interest in this house, talking about ZIMRA. The state cannot, Mr. President, the state cannot function without revenue. But how revenue is collected matters. We are witnessing a dangerous pattern that ZIMRA goes harder on ordinary citizens and informal operators, while large corporates are treated with patience, negotiation, and discretion. This is not theoretical. It has been brought sharply into the public view by ZIMRA's conduct in Gwanda. Ordinary travelers delayed, small traders intimidated, citizens treated as suspects for trying to move. Mr. President, when I brought this national point of national interest, it was not saying people don't want to pay, but we were saying ZIMRA must then improve its systems at the border where they're supposed to be operating it. But ZIMRA decides to let people go at the border and come and put a roadblock just 150 kilometers away from the border, where there is no toilets, there is no cameras, citizens are bound to be harassed as that is happening, Mr. President. We are saying ZIMRA must act and improve its systems, that every part of their duty works at the border. Of course, there are people who are smuggling, Mr. President. We're not hiding away from that, but they must be dealt with, because we're exposing ourselves as to how porous our borders are, and they are supposed to be the revenue authority, and there's supposed to be someone running those borders. We cannot have and expose ourselves that we are running a porous border post. And Mr. President, ordinary travelers delayed, small traders intimidated, citizens treated as suspects for trying to move. Meanwhile, under declaration by large firms persist. Audits drag on. Statements are quietly negotiated. The poor cannot negotiate with ZIMRA. They cannot delay compliance. So enforcement becomes aggressive where resistance is weakest. Mr. President, That is selective enforcement, and it erodes trust. Let me say this, Mr. President, without hesitation. ZIMRA cannot be above Parliament. ZIMRA cannot be above citizens. ZIMRA cannot be above the Constitution of Zimbabwe. A revenue authority feared by the poor but negotiated with by the powerful is not strengthening compliance. It is sowing resentment and resistance. Mr. President, the policies, VAT, ZIMRA housing, those policies are not operating in isolation. VAT raises the cost of living. ZIMRA enforces policy survival. Presumptive rental taxes are pushing up housing costs. The result, one system squeezing the same people from every direction. Mr. President, let us speak honestly about presumptive rental taxes. Landlords do not absorb taxes. They pass them on. In a country where wages are stagnant, informal incomes are unstable, housing demand far exceeds supply. Mr. President, over 40 years after independence, we still experience a Zimbabwe where people live in small houses, with big families, and we need to change that. If we are really pushing for Vision 2030, so that we expect that by then people have proper housing in this country. This tax, Mr. President, translates directly into higher rents, evictions, overcrowding, unsafe living conditions. This becomes a silent consumption tax on tenants, laid on top of VAT, transport costs, and food inflation. So when Treasury speaks of revenue mobilization, families hear rent increases. As I said, Mr. President, and I'll repeat, this presumptive tax will not go to the landlords. It will be pushed down to the very tenants and to the people who are having their VAT increased. Mr. President, on mining royalties, this is what I have to say. Yes, the budget adjusts mining royalties. That is directionally correct, Mr. President. But without transparent production verification, community benefit mechanisms, strict enforcement, royalties remain on paper. Resources rents must build schools, clinics, roads, and water systems, not private empires. I have said this in this House, Mr. President, and I will repeat it again. The mining industry is creating very rich individuals in a very poor country. Where we're extracting gold, we're leaving children hungry, we're leaving the communities without roads, we're leaving the communities without clinics, and we're leaving the communities without water to drink. I don't think this is the Zimbabwe that we envision as a country and as members of parliament. Mr. President, the budget allocates 30.4 billion to the Ministry of Health and Child Care. But numbers alone do not save lives. When VAT rises, transport costs rise, food costs rise, antenatal visits are delayed, families self-medicate. Then we must act surprised when hospitals become places of death instead of care. You cannot strengthen a health while taxing people out of access. Mr. President, where we come from in the rural areas as a rural MP, you realize that the cost of transportation is high because the roads are bad. So the people who run transport really go hard on the people in rural areas. So it is very expensive to access a district hospital because district hospitals are supposed to be central to over 16 wards in that district. Or in some districts, over 30 wards. If I can give an example for where I come from in Matopo, we share one district hospital for two Matopos, Matopo South and Matopo North. We have over 32 wards, if I'm not mistaken. And you have to travel from as far as for you to come in to Mapisa District Hospital. It is very expensive, And then as we speak now, with this VAT going up, to obviously go up as well on the pump, the cost of transport will go up as well. Mr. President, let me say this plainly. I said this in my opening remarks. This house, Mr. President, your house, is not a rubber stamp. This house exists to protect constitutionalism, defend citizens, scrutinize power. If we stay silent because these policies mostly hurt the poor, if we stay silent because these policies mostly hurt the poor, then we're punishing the very poor that we represent, Mr. President. The day Zimra begins to abuse the poor, Parliament will suddenly discover its voice. That day will come and history will judge where we stood. Mr. President, acts are repeatedly cited in budget documentation without being availed to this House. This, Mr. President, is unacceptable. The next time acts are quoted, this House must be given those acts so that we assess constitutionality and alignment with the supreme law. Parliament must never legislate blindly. Mr. President, the people do not expect miracles. They expect fairness. They expect progressive taxation, firm but humane revenue collection, protection of essentials, accountability of power, and they expect Parliament to fight. I therefore, Mr. President, call for a reduced reliance on VAT, real action against corporate tax avoidance, Zimra's accountability and constitutional restraint, protection of tenants and low-income households, transparency in mining revenues, respect for Parliament as a co-equal arm of the state. Mr. President, in closing, Zimbabwe will not develop by punishing poverty, policing survival, and negotiating with power. We will develop through fair taxation, constitutional enforcement, and a parliament that stands with its people. Let history record that this House did not keep quiet. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Mlochua. Is there any further debate? The Honorable Minister of Finance. Sorry, is there anybody standing up? As you were Minister, the Honorable Senator Shiri. Sorry, I didn't see you. You might proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want also to thank the Honorable Minister of Finance for the budget statements, which also puts the disability in the call paper. But now, Honorable Minister, we just want to see what has actually happened when we talk of persons with disabilities. Honorable Minister, the disability levy in the National Disability Policy, when are you going to operationalize it? Persons with disability programs are seriously underfunded, and it's causing poverty, Honorable Minister. Social protection is not charity. And we need to produce, as a country, assistive devices locally. We have the capacity, even as organizations of persons with disabilities. We need your support, Honorable Minister. Again, Honorable Minister, the cash withdrawal levies on its own, I think it's a counterproductive as a country. We've been working hard to ensure the financial inclusion through the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, and that kind of levy will cause setback on the gains made in the National Financial Inclusion Strategy 1 and 3. Honorable President. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Shiri. Any further debate? Honorable Senator Zizai.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to just make a very quick observation on the bill. In doing that, I wish to applaud the Minister for putting together policies that have consistently grown the GDP of this country. We are talking 50 at the moment, which is very big. Very applaudable. However, Mr. President, as the process of the budget happens, there are two sides of the equation. The first is growing the economy and collecting revenues to fund activities of the state. And in doing that, I think as the economy grows, we need the budget to begin to fill up pockets of the people. We need the budget to begin to emphatically work on social services delivery. And perhaps this is where my dream for this budget is that the Minister addresses issues of civil servants' salaries, so that we can see the numbers that he's talking about, and they reflect in practical terms in the quality of life of the civil servant. Currently, in spite of this meteoric growth in the GDP, the civil servants are still battling to provide 3 meals for their children, for their families. So, a GDP that grows, but without impacting the quality of life of the people, is useless. We need to begin to see the Minister working on issues of social security, on the issues of pensions. People who have broken their backs working to make Zimbabwe what it is today. When they walk to the bank today, pensioners walk out of the bank crying all the time. And I'm sure the Minister doesn't want to be the midwife for all this lacrimation. I'm sure he wants to put a smile on the face of the pensioner, on the face of the old person who cannot rise anymore to put energy to work to get a morsel of salad. So social security should be, in my opinion, strengthened. Health insurance, again, social service delivery. We need a nation that has got some sort of a health insurance that covers every Zimbabwean, so that anybody who walks into Parinatua Hospital can access health based on their contribution to the economy. Mr. President, I've got some experience as a mayor of the third largest city in our country, Namibia. And during that time when I was a mayor, I remember government used to provide health grants to local authorities. Local authorities run hospitals, they run clinics, they run polyclinics, and they used to get health grants so that people can access health at local level. It doesn't happen anymore. I wish that the economy can be sustained. A $50 billion economy can sustain it. Mr. President, the loudest cry in this country is related to issues of water. In local authorities, water back there at home, in the rural areas. Water delivery infrastructure needs to be funded very, very strongly because water is life anyway. Mr. President, I conclude by observing that if the GDP is growing, isn't it a contradiction that taxes keep growing as well? If the GDP is growing, one should assume that taxation should either remain or should actually fall. Because if you overtax a big economy, you might actually not be able to absorb the monies anyway. So I seem to see that contradiction. If you tax that high, then we must begin to see a welfare state of some sort, providing social service delivery to the communities, to the nation. This doesn't seem to be happening. The dependence on tax income, when we know that in this country, illicit financial flows drain more than 2-3 billion of our money, seems to me like not applying ourselves strongly in that direction. Perhaps we should also see stronger funding for all the processes that discourage or mitigate the issue of illicit financial flows. Mr. President, the cheeky approach where people ask for a reduction in IMMT, reduce that and increase another one by equal numbers, doesn't build trust. It doesn't build trust. You take 0.5 by the left hand and you give 0.5 the left hand and take away 0.5. You know, we need to do things that build trust so that we begin to work together as the executive and the parliament. Lastly, Mr. President, and my colleague has talked about it, is our submission going to be taken seriously? Are we just doing this for the purpose of ticking boxes? Do we expect that inputs from here can actually cause the mind of the minister to change? Then he can invite a house that is already stood to take on board our input. To me, it tends to demoralize me that we just come here, talk to hard of hearing it, to talk fully knowing that nothing will change. I think it is great.
Thank you, Senator Rizai. Is there any further debate? The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to respond to the queries, inputs, and comments from this august House. Let me start with the contribution from Honorable Senator Pulu. He made the initial point about
The debate having been robust, I think he has been following quite closely in the lower house, and that perhaps is clear. Our aspiration is always trying to perfect the system for revenue raising, so we try that. But yet concerns about perhaps compliance, especially from members of society who may not be as financially adept and literate, and urging us to spend more time on tax education, investing on tax education. Mr. President, I must say I agree with you that we must accompany these budget processes continuously with tax education measures. Zimra has already started. I think they need to do more and really make sure that we can educate our citizens on how to comply, so then they're not just hit by presumptive taxes because they're incapable of complying. It must be by choice. On the issue of the VAT increase, which was raised by Senator Pulu, and also had listened to the same comments from Senator Zizai and others. Also, I think Senator Munochwa. The low-income groups in our society, Mr. President, enjoy a consumption of 21 products which do not attract VAT. It might be helpful for me just to mention them for the record in Senate. 1, bread, buns, rolls, and similar products. 2, cooking oil, no VAT. Salt, no VAT. Milk, margarine, sugar, number 7, vegetables and fruits. Maize and maize meal, wheat and wheat flour. Number 9, 10, sanitary ware. 11, agricultural inputs. Minor arbiters, tractors, seed, animal feed, all manner of different inputs. Fertilizer at number 12, medicines and other pharmaceutical products. Goods used by the blind and physically challenged at number 14. 15, supply of domestic electricity doesn't pay VAT. Electricity imports, which are supplied for domestic use, does not attract VAT. Diesel and petrol, ethanol, even aviation fuel is included. Not that our poor members of society want aviation fuel, but it doesn't attract VAT. Paraffin, LPG gas, and then road toll fees, among others. So, Mr. President, we feel that when we make these changes of VAT, and 50% is not a very big increase, our poor members of society are still protected. These commodities are not affected at all. If I can add additional information just to compare with our peers in the region. VAT in Madagascar is at 20%. In Tanzania on the mainland, it's at 18%. In Mozambique, it's at 17%. In Malawi, it is 16.5%. In DRC and Zambia, they are both at 16%. And then comes Zimbabwe with the new proposal at 15.5%. Of course, there are some who are lower than us, like Mauritius, Namibia, Seychelles at 15%, South Africa at 15%, Botswana and Lesotho are at 14%. The point I'm making is that we're not the highest in the region by any measure, Mr. President. But I hasten to say, really, that the vulnerable groups in our societies are protected in the sense that the attend one goods that they consume do not attract any VAT. Then let me turn to the comments from Honorable Senator Zille, again on the issue of the VAT increase. I want to try to make the case that this is not as bad as it sounds. Then the measures to contain smuggling. Well, we've been implementing measures to contain smuggling, Mr. President. And we've used a variety of strategies to deal with sophistication that we come across here. First of all, we thought, let's go, high tech, and then launch a drone program. We've now deployed drones in all our major borders: the Bridge, Forbes, Chirun, Plumtree, and we should cover every border with that. But they can be switched off when you want them to be off. Whatever you need to do, maybe all you need is a 30 minutes window, and then the drone comes back. It's like all is okay. So we're aware of those weaknesses as well. This is why we thought, in the last budget, we thought let's introduce, let's call it a post-border clearance exercise where Zimra should be able to want to check if indeed certain goods have paid duty or not. That inspection is being conducted, and we believe it has been helpful. But also we did also upgrade the program for monitoring borders in the first place, working closely with our security MDAs that work with us, Defense, President Office, and others. And we believe that this operation has been effective. But it's a constant fight. Every day I receive videos, audio messages, and some of them are so daring. They've got their own vehicles which are armed. And I know of cases where they've shot back at our security agents. So these are very tough people who mean business. We too have to mean business. So sometimes when we see the harshness that then comes from Zimra and so forth, they also kind of react to the situation on the ground. But in the Rwanda incident, Mr. President, I've been made aware of it. I spoke to Zimra to say, let's lower the temperature. Whatever was happening there, I think that it is ruffled feathers. Let's try to be more civil as we go about doing our work. Let's not be too harsh. I now turn to Senator Mackenzie's movement. This was a pleasing comment on IMTT. That, having reduced it, now I'm even forced to increase VAT. Look, we will reduce the IMTT on the ZIG portion by 0.5%, from 2% to 0.5%. On the USD side, we still kept it because we wanted to favor the ZIG against the US dollar. It's our domestic currency. Because we had already said that the IMTT is now tax deductible, whether it's USD or ZIG is tax deductible. So that alone already imposes a loss on revenue. So we make up for it through the increase in VAT, which VAT really shouldn't affect the poor much. In terms of royalties on gold, which might encourage leakages, we have taken action. I can assure Senator Mackenzie that we have taken action. Yesterday we agreed in the lower house that we should still protect small-scale miners, Mr. President. So small-scale miners, they will remain on the status. They can't be paying about basically about 2% royalty in that states. Our target is on the large-scale side. So we made it very clear that the proposals only pertain to large-scale miners. Even with large-scale miners and foreign miners, given that the royalty is price-linked at the current price, they'll still be liable to a 5% royalty, which they're currently paying anyway. So really from yesterday to today to tomorrow to next week, nothing will change for anybody. Things only change if the price goes above $5,001. That's when the 10% kicks in. And it's not for the small-scale producers, but it's for the large investors and foreign investors. So we made that discrimination, and I think it will be helpful. Then coming back to comments by Senator Chow on VAT increase, trying to address that. The digital tax, well, we have to catch up with the developing world. If and we as policymakers we have been overrun by the digitalization economy, Mr. President. You know, a company called NVIDIA, Mr. President. We didn't know this company 4 years ago. But now its market capitalization is bigger than the entire GDP of the African continent. In 3 years, it's just the biggest gorilla on Wall Street and globally. And what does it do? Artificial intelligence. So we've just been overrun. The economies of it are moving so fast. And we're just trying to play catch up. And even then we're struggling to work out how to do this. A little bit on this digitalization text. Mr. President, there are people out there, including the company, YouTube, that will make money from content created in Zimbabwe. Facebook from content created in Zimbabwe. Or Netflix from content created in Zimbabwe. So that revenue is captured and consumed elsewhere, but the source is here. The point we're trying to make is, why can't we get a share of that in the form of taxes as well? It's not an easy thing to put in place, it's tough. I've been watching the French government fight this with the big tech companies. It's not easy. It even causes tension between the US and France, because these companies are quite powerful, they lobby their own government. And we just want it to be treated fairly. I said, well, that's all we're trying to do with this digitalization tax. It's not against the poor or anyone. In fact, we're trying to protect the poor, which is everybody. The corporates are doing so well. Mr. President, all the CSR for mining companies, yesterday we agreed to raise the corporate social responsibility rate to 3%. So we increased it, and now we really want to make sure that it is enforced. That's what is critical. I think on the Zimra issue and the Rwanda incident, we'll try to answer that one. Ask Zimra to tone down the tactics here and there. Then on the presumptive taxes that it may affect rentals. Again, Mr. President, we've said these are rentals pertaining to commercial activities, where the tenant is involved in commercial activities. In this case, there is commercial activities, not just a single mom who has got extra rooms or extra house and then they bring in tenants. It's none of that. It's someone who is more involved in commercial activities, but who does not then wish to comply with tax provisions and register properly and all that. And then we're saying, look, in that case, then you pay a presumptive tax. So I can again assure Senator Mloto that we're not going after, single moms and all who are struggling to feed their families, send their children to school. Certainly, we're not going to do any of that. On mining royalties, again, I try to answer. The health sector budget that Honorable mentioned, it's a point we'll check in. We have to keep improving our execution on the health sector budget within Treasury and the Ministry of Health. I now turn to the comments from Honorable Senator Shire in terms of persons with disability. The budget for persons, to support persons with disability is there. We approve it every year. It exists. It might just be a matter of execution. I don't think I want to proceed and say what I wanted to say, but I'm happy to engage Senator Shiri, the Permission President, after this debate, because I want to tell you something of what I came across not only once, but twice in Bulawayo at the Disability Center near Ilo Hospital. So, then I think she'll understand where I'm coming from. On the cash withdrawal levy, we set this aside, Mr. President. So we're pleased that we set it aside. We said, let's analyze this impact before we impose it on citizens. And then there are comments from Senator Zai regarding GDP growth. We seem to be well supported by the policies, but then there's this balance between revenue raising aspect as well as supporting growth and trying to balance the two. How can we make this balance? Let's do the following analysis. So 42% of the budget, Mr. President, is supporting the social sector. Health, education, for goods and infrastructure program, and the social protection program, about 42% of the budget. Now, that turns out to be about 7% of GDP. In other words, every year, 7% of the GDP, in terms of revenues collected, is shifted to support the social sectors. Every year, our growth rate is of the order of 5-6%. I hope we can really maintain that 6% going forward. So what I'm really saying is that it looks like every year the growth that we add on the GDP, the 5-6%, we literally take all of that and apply it to the social sectors. That's what we're actually doing. So my point being that we are sensitive to the social sectors, and that's what we're actually doing in reality. Maybe there's an issue of whether the services are really being frightened, ground, and so forth. But in terms of the budget allocations, we are doing the right things. Now, when it comes to civil servant salaries, it's a very important point that Senator Zai mentions. We have a job valuation linked salary adjustment coming through in the first quarter and second quarter of next year. So this will be taken care of. Completing the issue on health insurance, working with the Minister of Health on that to introduce that. And then in terms of pensions, I'm setting up a national pensions review panel because something has gone wrong in the industry, Mr. President. When things are normal, you expect the pension fund sector, or what, to use some fancy economic language, the contractual savings sector, which means pensions and so forth, to be bigger than the short-term insurance sector. But what we've seen is the reversal of positions. Our short-term insurance sector is now bigger than the pension fund sector. This needs to change. And we start promoting pension, savings, social security. That's how you finance the economy going forward. So set up a panel for us to look into strategies for investing in this way and encouraging the growth of contractual services. Senator Zai is correct about the importance of water delivery, and in the budget, we are still focused on completing Waishangani Kunzi Dam, and we have supported the city of Bulawayo in developing glass block dam. It's really up to them to drive the process. Whatever incentives they require, we're ready to support it, because it's a PPP, the public-private partnership arrangement. We support that. Senator Zai was also surprised that why are taxes growing when GDP is growing? Maybe they should stay the same, let GDP grow, you know? Why should they grow? You know what, we also watch the tax to GDP ratio. So after the rebasing of GDP, Mr. President, our tax to GDP ratio actually dropped to below 16%. So when you look at it, it looks like, Zimbabwe is having problems collecting taxes. But it's because the base has grown so sharply. It's because the nature of the economy has transformed. And as we try to understand that transformation, we look for new areas of taxation to make sure that everyone contributes to the fiscal, their fair share. That's all we are trying to do. It's not trying to overtax citizens. Coming back to the comment on IMTT, that we reduce IMTT, but then increase VAT, give with one hand, take away with another. IMTT is a more blunt instrument than VAT. At least with the VAT, the poor are protected. We just turn one product. But IMT3 above a certain threshold, no one is protected. So we still feel that this was a good way to try to recover a bit of revenue, but without hurting the poor. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I put the question that the Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025 be now read a second time. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the clerk will read the bill a second time.
Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025.
What day for committee, Minister?
Now, Mr. President, I thank you.
The whole House will be in committee.
Order. The committee of the whole House will take into consideration the Finance Bill HB 14A 2025. I put clause 1, short title. Is there any debate? Is there an objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 2, amendment of section 4 of chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Is there an objection?
No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 3, amendment of section 13A of chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Is there any debate? Is there an objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 4, new section inserted after section 13B in chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Is there an objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 5, amendment of section 14 of chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Is there an objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 6, amendment of schedule to chapter 1 of chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 7, substitution of section 22C of chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Honorable Senator Pulu.
In that section, there is, in that clause 7, there is paragraph, the proposed subsection 4, that is in quotes, paragraph C, in terms of which operators of goods vehicles having a carrying capacity of more than 10 tons but less than 20 tons, and so forth, including trailers. We do not have a definition of goods vehicle. And Mr. Chair, when I tried to look for the act that is being amended, it's very difficult to find the Finance Act in current form. I found one only up to December 2024. And so, but in the one that I found, I don't think there's a definition for goods vehicle, which means that farmers, here I'm worried about farmers will definitely own such trucks, but merely for use on their farms, to carry their wares and so forth, to do work on the farm, tractors with that capacity and so forth. Even those who are conducting mining and are already paying taxes for overall for their mining business, should they then be required to register in terms of this self-assistance simply for a specific track? I think this is a point we have raised before in the past when we have dealt with the finance amendment. I'd like the Minister to consider that and give us a response.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Pulu, thank you for that comment. I think that if there is some potential for misinterpretation or ambiguity, then I think we want to be careful when we do administer this kind of provision. And I'd like to request for his indulgence that we proceed administratively to deal with these issues rather than through legal precision to say from this specific act, that definition and so forth. If you could indulge us to proceed administratively in doing the right thing, while understanding that there may be some gray areas. I thank you.
Any further debate? Is there an objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 8, amendment of section 22G of chapter 23.4. Is there any debate? An objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 9, substitution of section 22M of chapter 23.4. Is there any debate? objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 10, amendment of section 22P in chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 11, new section inserted after section 22S in chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 12, amendment of chapter 11 of chapter 23.04. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 13, amendment of section 2 of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 14, amendment of section 12A of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 15, substitution of section 12B of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 16, amendment of section 15 of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 17, amendment of section 16 of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 19, new part inserted after part 3A of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 20, 19. Okay, I beg your pardon. I put clause 19. I put clause 20, new section substituted for section 36L of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. On clause 20. All right. We're going to clause 21, amendment of section 36P in chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 22, new section inserted after section 36Q in chapter 23.6. Is there an objection? Is there any debate?
Yes.
Honorable Senator Pulu.
Chair, on paragraph 40, in page 15, any podded pension fund that is registered by the Retirement and Pensions Commission in a retirement investment vehicle in which the contributions of multiple participants, such as employers and employees, are combined into one large pod of assets. I think this is a typo. I think you should read any pool. And we should also read a large pool. The error. Technically speaking, it needs to be corrected. And I must say, it can be corrected later by by the normal way of correcting typos, by the reader or something, because it's been proposed by him. So it needs to be corrected. It's an important typo which needs to be corrected at the instance of Senate.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I fully agree with Senator Fu. There is a typing error there. More than notice it. Thank you for noticing it. And it should be recorded as a proposal from Senate. It will be corrected. Thank you. It's a correction, not an amendment, isn't it? It's a correction. It should be proved. It's a correction. The typographical error should be corrected.
I submit that it's an amendment. It will be a correction. It's a correction. So it's an amendment.
Just a minute, we're consulting so that we can do the appropriate response. Honorable Minister, there is further clarification, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is clearly an editorial error that needs to be dealt with. So, and we thank the honorable member for spotting this. So basically, we're supposed to, the whole of that information seems to be elsewhere in its correct form. So in this paragraph 22, it ought to be struck out in the following manner. So it should only be up to, under paragraph 22, you see the small 25 on the left-hand column. And the last line on that paragraph 25 reads, text fixed from time to time in the changing act. Can you see that? On the paragraph 22. I'm on paragraph 22. So we then delete from where it says in paragraph 1, by the session of the following, we delete all of that. So it to be the if you look at it, if I'm using these little numbers on the extreme left, we're showing 80, 35, 40, 45, all of that should be deleted. Because what we try to capture there has been captured correctly under paragraph 24, which was yet to consider. I thank you. Any further debate?
Yes, sir. I would like to thank the Minister for that. I indeed agree that that same information is captured actually properly, because here is in the wrong section altogether. It doesn't talk about exemptions. And so, but the striking out of that will then constitute
I would like to insist an amendment. Because this house does not revise. This house amends. And I know the reason why people don't want an amendment is because they've adjourned the house.
Honorable Senator, approach the chair. Okay, we will proceed. Those paragraphs 30, 35, 40, 45 are misplaced and they've been cancelled. I put clause 23, amendment of section 80A of chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Is there any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 24, amendment of third schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Is there an objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 25, amendment of ninth schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Is there an objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 26, amendment of 13th schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 27, amendment of 15th schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 28, amendment of 17th schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 29, amendment of 21st schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. Honorable members, let's work together. I put clause 29, amendment of 21st schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 30, amendment of 13th schedule to chapter 26.3. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 31, amendment of 35th schedule to chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 32, new schedule substituted for 36th schedule in chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 30. Yeah, put clause 33. New schedules inserted after 38th schedule in chapter 23.6. Is there any debate? Any objection? put clause 34, amendment of schedule chapter 4 of chapter 23.4. Any objection? No. Any debate? No objection. No objection. Agreed to. Right. I put clause 35. I put clause 35, amendment of section 2 of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 36, amendment of section 7 of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 37, amendment of section 10 in chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 38, amendment of section 11 in chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put section 39, I put clause 39, amendment of section 12B in chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 40, amendment of section 12D in chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 41, amendment of section 12E of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 42, new sections inserted in chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 43, amendment of section 13 of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 44, substitution of section 13A of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put clause 45, amendment of section 20 of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 46, amendment of section 23 of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 47, amendment of section 39 of chapter 23.4. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 48, amendment of section 81A of chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put clause 49, schedule inserted in chapter 23.12. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 50, amendment of section 10 of chapter 23.1. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 51, new section 30C inserted in chapter 23.1. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 52, amendment of section 2 of chapter 23.2. Any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 53, amendment of section 127 of chapter 23.2. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 54, new section substituted for section 175A of chapter 23.2. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 55, amendment of section 2216A of chapter 23.2. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 56, amendment of section 216B in chapter 23.2. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 57, amendment of section 234 of chapter 23.2. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. Clause 58, amendment of section 235 of chapter 23.2. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 59, confirmation of tariffs imposed, amended or replaced by minister under section 225 of chapter 23.2. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put clause 60, amendment of section 2 of chapter 21.04. Any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 61, amendment of schedule chapter 7 of chapter 23.4. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 62, amendment of section 34 of chapter 23.11. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 63, amendment of Act number 7 of 2021. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 64, declaratory provision concerning section 20 of SI 29 of 2025. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 65, validation of statutory instrument 1, statutory instrument 81 of 2025. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 66, amendment of chapter 21.03. Is there any debate? Honorable Senator Pulu.
Paragraph 45. I propose an amendment to section 1, paragraph B. Right at the bottom of the page where it says the person
That's paragraph number.
paragraph B. Paragraph 45. On page 44.
Page 24 or 44? 44.
It says the person, he or she is a holder. He or she is a holder. That's what makes sense.
Is that all?
Yes.
All right, Honorable Minister.
A holder or tribute doesn't make sense.
66, paragraph B. I think this is potentially the holder of a license, isn't it? And the tributor is someone who holds a tribute. That's how I think that's the way to draft it. So holder of a license or holder of a tribute referred to as a tributor.
Mr. Chair, precisely. It's an error. It should be the whole. Holder or a tribute of what? The holder of an error which
We have very smart lawyers at the back of the room. The way sentence reads is actually correct. If I can go over it, we should read it as follows. We should start with where it says, one, no person shall, comma, either its principal or agent, deal in gold unless, then we turn to B, unless he or she is a holder or tributor, or we go to the next page and then we read the last two sentences, or any and deals in gold in accordance with this act or the license, permit, authority, or grant, if any, held by him or her. If you read all of it like that, then it makes a lot of sense. I submit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. They then have to delete either and or the or. Well, if you cannot read or and deals in gold, I can see what the minister is, the flow of what the minister is saying, but it's either or deals in gold or it's and deals in gold.
Yeah.
Unless it is that and or, then if it's and sense, if it's or and, it doesn't make sense.
The chair, on a lighter note, ladies and the lawyers argue. I propose that Honorable Mfulu is allowed to come over and talk to the technical people at the back, and they sort this out, move on to the next paragraphs. Yeah, but that was the point. They're insistent that it is correct as is.
Problem with them. I will put this. That's not correct.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thanks for Honorable Mfulu for your indulgence. Chair, unless it's not in order, maybe we proceed with the rest, or maybe not. Your guidance, Chair. Honorable Minister. Honorable Chair, thank you very much. There has been a technical discussion between Honorable Timothy Black and Honorable Senator Tulu. In this agreement, they've agreed that clause 66 stands as is. Okay. I now put clause 67, amendment of first schedule of chapter 14.33. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. Clause 68, amendment of chapter 9.24. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 69, new part inserted after part 5 of chapter 24.25. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put clause 70, amendment of section 11 of chapter 22.5. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I shall now report the bill without amendments. Mr. President, sir, Committee of the Whole House has gone through the Finance Bill, HB 14A 2025, has set forth in the accompanying copy and has agreed to the same without amendment. Order.
The chairperson of committees reports the Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025 without amendment. What day for that reading, Minister?
Now, Mr. President, thank you.
Minister, please ask for a third reading.
I propose that the bill be read a third time. Move that the bill be read a third time.
Thank you. The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion that the Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025 be now read a third time. Is there any debate? Mr. President. Yes, Honorable Puru. As point of privilege, briefly. In terms of section 131 of the Constitution, as read with the fifth schedule, this bill is a money. This bill is a money bill. It's
a what? Is a money bill.
Yes.
It being a money bill, Senate does not have the power to amend a money bill. It may recommend that the National Assembly amends it. And when the National Assembly considers, when we make a recommendation, the National Assembly must consider those amendments. It applies to the next bill. But we note that the National Assembly has been adjourned, meaning that on the part of the minister or the administration, they must not have considered that we will make amendments. But what if we had made amendments and we would like to raise the point that it takes Senate for granted? In future, Mr. President, they mustn't bring bills to us, knowing very well that the mechanism to consider our amendments cannot be fulfilled within the time frame that is required for the nation to pass this budget. So it is a point of privilege which would like to be considered in future.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Pulu. Your assumption is not correct. Because even though the National Assembly adjourned this morning, it can still be recalled. The National Assembly can still be recalled by the President to consider any item if it comes up, as it were. So your assumption, I think, is a bit misplaced. Thank you. I put the question that the Finance Bill, HB 14A of 2025, be now read a third time. Those who have that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. Then the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the clerk will read the bill a third time.
Finance Bill HB 14A of 2025.
Congratulations, Honorable Minister. The clerk will read the second order of the day.
Second reading, Appropriation 2026 Bill HB 13 of 2025.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the purpose of this bill is to give effect to the main estimates of expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2026, which I tabled to this August House on the 27th of November 2025. Section 3 of the Appropriation 2026 2025 bill charges the Consolidated Revenue Fund with a sum of 253 billion ZIC, which relates to the 2026 vote appropriations. Section 4 of the Appropriation 2026-2025 bill charges the retained funds with the sum of 11 billion ZIC, which relates to the 2026 vote appropriations. The vote appropriations under the 2026 budget theme, enhancing drivers of economic growth and transformation towards Vision 2030, have been guided by the National Development Strategy 2, anchored on the following 10 national priorities: macroeconomic stability and financial sector deepening, inclusive economic growth and structural transformation, structural development and housing, agriculture, food security, climate resilience, and environmental protection, science, technology, innovation, digitalization, and human capital development, job creation, youth development, creative industry, and culture, social development, gender, and social protection, regional development, and inclusivity through devolution and decentralization, image building, international relations and trade, and finally, good governance, institution building, peace and security. Overall, it is imperative to contain expenditures, particularly employment costs, in order to reorient the thrust of the fiscal expenditures towards infrastructure development, particularly in the energy, water, transport, and ICT subsectors. In Section 6, subsection 1 of the bill, it empowers the Minister of Finance, Economic Development, and Investment Promotion to transfer funds already approved by Parliament between votes in respect of the function of responsibility transferred between ministries and departments during the course of the fiscal year. Section 6, subsection 2 of the bill allows discretion of the Minister of Finance, Economic Development, and Investment Promotion to transfer funds from the unallocated reserve, which appears on the Minister of Finance and Economic Development and Investment Promotion vote, to any other vote as and when the need arises in order to meet inescapable expenditures. In addition, and if necessary, the Minister of Finance, Economic Development, and Investment Promotion can vary the amounts so transferred by taking back any surplus for reallocation to other ministries to meet demands that may arise. Mr. President, I accordingly move that the bill be now read a second time. Thank you.
Thank you. The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Development, and Investment Promotion that the Appropriation 2026 Bill, HB 13 of 2025, be now read a second time. Is there any debate? Is there any debate? I put the question that the appropriation 2026 Bill HB 13 of 2025 be now read a second time. Those who of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the clerk will read the bill a second time.
Appropriation 2026 Bill HB 13 of 2025.
What day for committee, Minister?
Now, Mr. President.
The whole House will be in committee.
Order, honorable senators. The committee of the whole house will take into the appropriation brackets 2026 considerate bill HB 13 of 2025. I put clause 1, short title. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 2, interpretation. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 3, consolidated revenue fund charged with 253 billion ZIG. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 4, retention funds charged with 11 billion ZIG. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 5, application of monies granted. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put clause 6, power of Minister of Finance and Economic Development to authorize transfers between votes. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put schedule section 4, expenditure to be defrayed from consolidated revenue fund and retention fund. I put clause 1, vote 1, office of the president and cabinet, 12 billion and 17 million and 170,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 2, Parliament of Zimbabwe, 4 billion 103 million 479,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 3, public service, labor and social welfare, 12 billion 715 million 859,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote defense, vote for defense, 19 billion 766 million 214,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put vote 5, finance, economic development and investment promotion, 25 billion 719 million 290,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 6, office of the auditor general, 764 million 373,000. Is there any debate? I put vote 7, industry and commerce, 489 million 799,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put vote 8, lands, agriculture, fisheries, water and rural development, 26 billion 821 million 677,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 9, mines and mining development, 789 million and 22,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 10, environment, climate and wildlife, 510 million 185,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 11. Transport and infrastructural development. 4,660,031,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 12. Foreign affairs and international trade. 3,922,487,000. Is there any debate? I put vote 13. Local government and public works. 4,597,787,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 14. Health and child care. 30,420,364,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 15. Primary and secondary education. 47,383,282,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 16. Higher and tertiary education, innovation, science and technology development. 10,336,822,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 17. Women affairs, community, small and medium enterprises development. 1,164,034,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 18. Home affairs and cultural heritage. 17,279,039,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 19. Justice, legal and parliamentary affairs. 6,988,626,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 20. Information, publicity and broadcasting services. 463,132,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 21. Youth empowerment, development and vocational training. 1,718,972,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 22. Energy and power development. 330,327,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection. Agreed to. I put vote 23. Information, communication technology, and postal and courier services. 763,517,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. National housing and social amenities. 948,944,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put vote 25. Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Affairs. 1,179,282,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? Honor representative debate. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, ndoda kungonzwa kuti 1 billion tichitarisa ma-school fees asina kubhadharwa evana vakawanda vema-war veterans. Zvakare, the general welfare yema-war veterans yatiri kuziva tese kuti vari kutambira pension $150. Imari yatikatarisira here kuti sure welfare yema-war veterans ichange iri catered for $1 billion dollars. Kunyanya tichitarisa kuti vanhu vakwegura, ndandauda kutaura chirungu, vanhu vakwegura vakuda nyaya dzekurapwa. Nhasi ndatombobatikana chaizvo pasocial media ndichiona mumwe comrade atopiwawo wheelchair nemumwe munhuwo zvake amunzwira tsitsi akadamburwa gumbo iye zvino akasokwarira muhondo, but akazoridamburwa ndofunga 2 weeks ago, kutopiwawo chair nemunhu amunzwira tsitsi. Isu tichiziva kuti it is a right yekuti hurumende ione kuti welfare yema-war veterans yachengetedzwa ende upenyu hwavo vari kurarama zvine unhu hwekuti ndo vakaunza kuti tigare mudare rino iri, kuti titaure nyaya yemavhotsi nekugohana kwatiri kuita izvozvi, mari dzatiri kugohana, ivo vachisiva vari kungodya nhoko dzezvironda. Mazvita. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank the Honorable Senator for that very important intervention. Madam Chair, in terms of support to veterans, our approach has been two-pronged, maybe I should say three-pronged. One, we've got the normal budget support, which is what we're debating in this vote. And then we've got assets that we've handed over to veterans of the liberation struggle. And then three, we have various empowerment programs here and there that are often extended to them. I want to speak to the second point, which is about the assets. Veterans were given about 21 assets, mainly in the gold sector. I'm aware that there were challenges in operationalizing them, and the ministry has done a lot of work, which is the Ministry of Veterans, to get those assets to be properly owned, and then we could begin then the process of operating them. There are also 6 funds. 2 are still missing. They are still needed, Mat South and Mat North. They haven't handed over their contribution to that asset base. Also, we have got the hunting concessions in areas such as Matete, and I know at one point they even had a decent herd of cattle as well as part of the asset base. I'm mentioning that because when government took the decision to hand over these assets was to create an asset base that can yield returns, resources, revenues for our veterans and support them further. So really in the budget, what I've done, I've made an allocation towards operationalizing these assets. We think it's important for all veterans to be able to create these projects, manage these empowerment projects, and be self-sufficient. But obviously not completely so. We still have to continue to support them in the budget. But we're hopeful that this could be the case. We stand ready to lend our veterans any support they need to operationalize these assets. I think 2 of the farms are now operated under the other joint venture arrangement. So that's progress. We'd like to do more going forward. We're also looking forward, Madam Chair, to gazetting the war collaborators who have been, the names of war collaborators who have been vetted successfully. It's almost 160,000 of them, in addition to the 30,000 odd war veterans. So we're acutely aware of the issues that are affecting war veterans. We're doing everything we can to support them. Coming specifically to the children of the war veterans who need BEAM support, as government, we took a decision that the BEAM program should be audited, because we feel that the beneficiaries are not appropriately targeted. The rumors that keep hearing that it's at least 50% of the majority are non-deserving cases. But we've said for war veterans, because they are known, we should begin with clearing the areas for the children of war veterans, and this will happen in Q1 of 2026, Madam Chair. So we are on to it. So I really concur with what the Honorable Senator is saying, but I hope that my responses have tried to cover their queries satisfactorily. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Is there any debate? Honorable President, is it a supplementary? It's a follow-up. I appreciate the response by the Honorable Minister in terms of how heartily he has expressed in terms of ensuring that, war veterans should be catered for. But the statement that he has just made reference to in terms of investment vehicles, these are political statements which are never supported, because let me give you an example. I'm a former board member of the War Veterans Board, right? And this must have been which year? Almost about 5 years ago, when the investment vehicle was instituted or set up. And up to now, year in, year out, when we are doing this budget, we always hear of investment vehicles to set up funds in order to cater for the welfare of our veterans. But it's never materially or materializing, tangible. I like the example that the minister is giving of the joint venture in farming, one of the farms. What is it that is stopping again the government to go into a joint venture, particularly on the other mines or claims that the minister has made reference to actually go into mining on a joint venture basis so as to capitalize whatever that fund we should cater for the war veterans? Why should it just be a lip service, year in, year out, year in? This is what we are witnessing, and it worries me. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam Chair, I thank Senator Cindy for that further contribution. I know the origins of those assets very well. I even paid personally $250 to have the company registered, because we couldn't get our government system to move. It was just too big to release $250, including my own ministry. That's how personal I know it. So these companies exist. The assets were received, they were transferred, There is a board which the ministry superintends over, which is the Ministry for Responsible Veterans. So this institution exists. Unfortunately, the Minister of Finance cannot be involved in the day-to-day management of the institution. That will leave to the relevant ministry. But I'm also aware, because I've received reports in conversation with the Minister responsible for veterans, that she has worked very hard in cleaning up this asset and getting it to function properly. And even I'm beginning to feel there's traction, there's progress. And then there were legacy issues pertaining to the financial institution. I think I didn't say too much just in case things are subdued. I heard there was some court case as well. But something had to be resolved regarding some financial asset of sorts. So I think the progress is being made. So I can assure senators that this is not just talk. In fact, perhaps there's a way in which the ministry responsible for veterans could produce maybe a report, almost a public statement, public report, just to report on the state of these assets, because they were handed over. Although I know that they are doing their work to make sure that these assets become functional. It's not a gimmick, it's not a political statement. I thank you.
Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 26. Tourism and hospitality industry. 369,364,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 27. Sport, recreation, arts and culture. 841,351,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 28. Skills, audit and development. 229,047,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 29. Judicial Services Commission. 1,396,692,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 20. Public Service Commission. 11,444,161,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 31. National Council of Chiefs. 200,329,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? Agreed to. No objection agreed to. I put vote 32. Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission. 256,444,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, there's no allocation. I put vote 34. National Prosecuting Authority, 545,376,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 35. Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, 248,056,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 36. Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, 514,840,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection agreed to. I put vote 37. Zimbabwe Gender Commission, 167,824,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put vote 38. Zimbabwe Land Commission, 245,272,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put vote 39. Zimbabwe Media Commission, 159,235,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put vote 40. Health Service Commission, 335,889,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? No objection, agreed to. I put vote 41. Office of the Attorney General, 304,887,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I put vote 42. Zimbabwe Independent Complaints Commission, 108. I beg your pardon. 253 billion. 200. Which one? Okay. I beg your pardon, sorry. This one. 108,063,000. Is there any debate? Any objection? I shall now report the bill without amendments. Mr. President says the committee of the Home House is amendment.
The chairperson of committees reports the appropriation bill HB 13/2025 without amendment. What did they protect the Honorable Minister?
Mr. President, I move that the bill be read the third time.
The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion that the Appropriation 2026 Bill HB 13/2025 be now read the third time. Is there any debate?
I put the question that the appropriation bill, HB 13/2025, be read a third time. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the bill is read a third time.
Appropriation 2026 Bill HB 13 of 2025.
Congratulations, Honorable Minister. I recognize Honorable Minister of
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just want to thank the honorable senators for the hard work that they gave in today to ensure that we deal with the business of our budget, the finance bill, and the appropriation bill. And I just want to wish you well, wish you a happy Christmas and a prosperous New Year, and hoping that we will come back, all of us, and that God will bless us this festive season. Having said that, Mr. President, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Order. It has been moved that the House do now adjourn. Is there any debate? I put the question that the House do now adjourn. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the House is adjourned. To what day, Honorable Minister?
To the 10th of February 2026.
Genesis, honorable members, off to the farms. Thank you.
This is good.